Why do people like racing? So I'm going to look at this both from a racer's point of view and a viewer's point of view. Why is it that we like to watch races? And why do racers like to race? So I'm going to look at a couple of race disciplines, and on top of that I'm going to split this into two categories of casual and professional. And with that, hopefully I can shed some light and answer some questions that many people have, maybe. Motorsport in general is incredibly niche, and more often than not you're going to have two groups of people. You have one side that absolutely loves it, and then another side that just doesn't quite understand it. I am a firm believer that if you like something, you have to be able to justify exactly why you like it, so I aim to do just that in this video. So, common question asked is oftentimes, why would I watch cars driving around in circles over and over again? I'll address that shortly after making this point. Conceptually, there's two different types of races in the world of racing. You have circuit racing, which is driving around in circles, and you have point-to-point racing. Examples of point-to-point racing would be drag racing or rally. So let's use the example of rally race car driving. Now, to become a rally race car driver, you have to be borderline suicidal, because driving these cars is not an easy thing, and you're driving on terrain that's oftentimes very unforgiving in cars that are also kind of twitchy and really fast. So it goes without saying that to get the best performance out of any car, especially in rally, you have to drive with absolutely no fear, as literally every single turn that you take is a turn that could very much see you off track and into a tree. And beside the driver is a person with the job description of bravest passenger of all time in the co-driver, and the co-driver's job is to read the turns that are coming up to the driver, keep calm and composed no matter how scary it gets, and read clearly so that the driver can process the information and prepare the car for every single turn. So why do people get excited over rally? Well, I challenge anyone to place a video of rally and try and click away from it. It's almost impossible. The second you start seeing just exactly what people are doing with these machines, you realize pretty quickly you want to see what happens next. The fast-paced action means that the drivers have to anticipate every single turn as it comes, again with the help of the co-driver who tells them exactly what turn's going to come. Each driver has to display absolutely perfect technique to turn the car exactly as they wish, especially when it comes to turns such as chicanes, which is a quick left and right or vice versa, and the margin of error is incredibly small, so anything a little bit off place and you're basically off the track. This is a sport that truly challenges the term high risk, high reward. Between everyone that you're competing with, every single person has the same mentality in which they are willing to go right to the edge of the car to get the fastest speed possible and get maximum results. But at the same time, the closer you push to the edge, the closer you are to death. And there's something about that in which there's an adrenaline rush which cannot be denied, and for the drivers, they understand this full well, and that's actually what drives them. Now, the spectators in rally are also pretty insane. In fact, I'm going to show a few footages of how close the spectators get to the cars. Now, there's also a high risk and not really much reward, in all honesty and feeling, compared to the drivers, but being on the edge, seeing the action close up, especially when you see the speed at which these cars go, spectating is actually quite thrilling, and the closer you are to the action, the more thrill you get yourself. So this is why spectators, I guess, really love rally. It's that involvement and that closeness in which every single moment that you're viewing, you know that the car is being pushed to the limit, the driver's pushing it to the limit, and anything can happen at any point. But the fact that, well, of course, more often than not, nothing happens, but you're always on that knife edge, like I said, is really thrilling to watch and get through. So after that long tangent, back to why would I watch cars driving around in circles? So the main categories that I watch are Formula 1 and GTWC. These are two different machineries, in which one is supercars that you can see out on the streets, and the other one is tailor-made specific vehicles that are basically just built for racing, and that's their one sole purpose. They're not even road legal. So the rules between the two categories are incredibly different. For this video, I'm going to focus more on Formula 1 so that I have more to say and more information to give, as opposed to trying to put too much into one video. So for the breakdown of Formula 1, you've got 10 teams, and both teams have 2 cars. So Formula 1 is known as the pinnacle of motorsports. So this is basically the best racing cars in the world and also the best drivers in the world. Starting off with the cars. Although at first glance the cars look exactly the same, there's actually many differences between the cars, and there's not one team that has the same car. This comes down to the interpretation of the rules by the engineers who build these cars. Because of this fact, basically it means that every single car is widely different to the next in terms of how it drives and feels. This becomes the first challenge for the driver, as after the build of the car, they basically have to learn exactly how the car works and operates for the maximum results that they can achieve. This begins an evolutionary process in which the driver starts off the season learning the car and slowly adapts to it so that they can become faster and more efficient with how they use the car. Throughout the entirety of the season, there's also a developmental race in which the teams can actually develop the car to become better and better over time. So basically, Formula 1 is not a level playing field by any stretch of the imagination. If your team builds a good car, you are almost destined to be a champion. If your team builds a bad car, then no one cares about you and it's basically a waste of your season. If this is something that we can determine, then why do we continue to watch race after race? This is actually where it gets exciting when it comes to the in-team dynamics. The most comparable driver to yourself is actually your own teammate because you're driving the same car. So this basically means that the biggest threat to you keeping your Formula 1 seat is actually from someone that you work with. This means that even being in a bad car that's destined to be last does not mean you can take an off season or just relax for the rest of the year, because if your teammate consistently does better than you, it just exposes that you're not maybe the best driver for that car, and by extension Formula 1. So effectively, this is a high pressure situation in which every single week you have to perform and get the most out of each performance week after week, because any slip up means that you could be falling behind your teammate and lose your job. And I feel like I should stress once again that these are the best drivers in the world. So the margin for error is absolutely minimum, and that actually shows just how impressive these people are for being able to drive as well as they do consistently on a week-to-week basis. So at this point, for perspective, I'm going to add my casual point of view. As you all know, I've done some casual sim racing on this channel and I've posted videos, which I will continue to do. But just from watching those videos, it's quick to see that it's really difficult to be fast. Firstly, we begin with consistency. Replicating a lap to be within 0.3 of a second of the next over and over again is something that is incredibly difficult. The mental focus that you need to do that every single lap, brake at the exact same spot, turn in the exact same way, is something that as a casual is nearly impossible. Following consistency is pace. Of course, as a casual, you can become consistent, but you can become consistent in that you are about 4 seconds off the fastest people. Finding that extra lap time and eking off tenths at a time on every single lap is something that is so much easier said than done. But then again, saying that, consistency and pace is something that you have to build probably before you even ever race anyone. So on the third point comes when you finally do start racing people, and that's racecraft. Now, building your pace and consistency on time trial is one thing, but now add another 19 people who are trying to do the same thing on the same road. And that's effectively what racecraft is. How do you manage your race with cars around you who are basically in some ways in your way, and in other ways, if you're slower, how do you manage your speed to either keep up or to at least be effective, ensuring that you can get the best results for your skill level. As a casual, I can easily tell you that those are answers that I could never give you. With all that said, this is exactly why we love racing. Doing what they do in these cars is incredibly difficult already on its own. They're driving cars at nearly 200 miles per hour, while displaying impeccable awareness to actually be able to race each other on the same track battling wheel to wheel at corner after corner. The moments in racing that put you on the edge of your seat can be rare. Sometimes races can be boring, and that's to be expected. However, when you see moments like these, with an understanding of just how difficult some of these maneuvers are to pull, and also the bravery required to even attempt them in the first place, you begin to appreciate the artistry involved in driving a Formula 1 car, much like watching Kyrie Irving playing basketball, watching Lionel Messi playing football, or even watching a live performance of Hamilton. All in all, racing is actually incredibly nuanced, and in the 10 minutes that I've been rambling, I can easily say that I've merely scratched the surface of what makes racing so enjoyable to watch and partake in. On display right now is a battle between Nico Rosberg, the GOAT, versus Lewis Hamilton in Bahrain 2014. Now it's definitely gonna get a copyright strike, but you know what, I could not care less. This is one of the best battles to show in modern era Formula 1 racing. Here are two drivers driving practically the same car, only change being the setup that both drivers prefer to use. This once again showing the pressure that you have from your own teammate to actually perform every single week, because at the end of the day, the only person that you can be compared to, as I've said before, is in fact your teammate. The race becomes a game of chess in which the strategy that you play actually creates the difference between you and your teammate. Raw speed is actually not enough to win a race, but you find that more often than not, the smarter driver beats the faster driver. This battle saw Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg going at each other lap after lap, trying to pull insane maneuvers just to get an overtake and make it stick. With the final pit stops being done, it was just about whoever could execute the best to the finish line. But it was a spectacle right until the very last lap, and showcasing again why we like racing. We like the adrenaline. We like to see the boundaries being pushed to the very limit. We like the risk factor. We like all-out competition.